Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. The main event of the June Joust has arrived after one of the most insane qualifiers we have seen in a bit. This time around, we have some familiar faces, but also a few underdog newcomers trying to prove themselves. Will the ones with the experience gain the upper hand, or is it time for these new teams to shine? Let's talk about it. Here's my preview and bracket predictions for the 2021 June Joust tournament. Oh, and if at any point my bracket no longer holds up to be true, I'll be sure to post new predictions on the community tab and my Twitter for those of you who want to keep up. But let's dive into this thing now. Game 1, NYXL versus Atlanta Reign. This is a very interesting battle. Both of the newcomers who weren't supposed to make it here take each other on in the first round. I talked about it a little bit during my video on Monday, but this is probably the best case scenario for both sides. Now one of these two franchises gets a guaranteed spot in the winners finals and would only have to win one game against either Dallas or Shanghai to advance to the finals. So it goes without saying that this is a massive game. This is an opportunity you do not want to have go to waste. If I'm being honest, this is the one game in this tournament which truly feels winnable for either one of these squads. New York and Atlanta have had their fair share of ups and downs, so it's hard to count on either of them consistently. Both have gotten some high quality wins since the start of the June Joust, but they have not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But let's talk about it without thinking about the randomness factor. Let's talk about their strengths and weaknesses, some constants if you will. Who is truly the stronger team? Well, for me personally, I'm leaning towards the Reign thanks to their DPS line. Kai and Pelican have been so good all year. I like what Flora and Feather bring to the table, but they don't have the same level of carry potential in my opinion, and if they try fighting them in the mirror, it might not go so well for them unless the NYXL come in with a solid strategy to slow these two down, but that might not be so easy if they intend to commit to the bunker compositions. Not having those mobile tanks to peel and help pressure the enemy DPS makes it a lot tougher. You're basically putting all of the responsibility on the shoulders of your damage dealers at that point, which might not be the best idea. Maybe they could try and do something with the Zarya to force the Atlanta supports into making mistakes, but the Zarya might not be as effective against Narissa plus Sigma and or D.Va than it is against what the Spark were running. The one thing the NYXL definitely do have going for themselves though, in my opinion, is that they are team-oriented rather than depending on their carries. If they can invest in their team play enough, maybe they could overwhelm the Reign. If this was the May Melee, I would say the chances of that happening are somewhat high, but the Reign are extremely comfortable in this meta and their other players seem much more capable and dependable. This could be a good game, especially if the NYXL find a way to surprise the opposition, but I am leaning towards the Atlanta Reign in a 4-map affair. They possess the stronger playmakers and have the prep time to find the best possible counter to the NYXL Zarya comp if they choose to use it. And don't forget that we really don't know how good the NYXL could be at the rush comps when facing a North American team who has shown they can dominate with it on these control maps. Now on to the main event, the May Melee Finals rematch between the Dallas Fuel and Shanghai Dragons. Despite playing in separate regions, this will be the third meeting between these two squads. I suppose that's what happens when you're at the top though. You're bound to run into each other during these types of things. What's going to happen this time? Will the Fuel once again prevail, or will the Dragons finally get their revenge? Well, it really comes down to Shanghai's adaptations. So far, they've been utilizing the Orisa comps a lot, and it's been going well for them. In fact, they're probably one of the better teams in the league on it currently. The way they dismantled Soul on it was pretty disgusting, and when Lee Jae-gun gets it going the way he did, it's hard to stop the Dragons, but this won't be like playing any of the other teams in the bracket or anybody Shanghai has played so far. The Fuel don't care for that kind of stuff because they're all about the Winston Rush, which only the Shock have been able to stop them on so far. Plus, the Dragons haven't really touched that comp as it hasn't been very relevant in Asia. So what is the game plan? Do you stick to what's been working for you and hope you just play cleaner? Or do you look at all these other teams who have been crushed, trying this approach, and attempt to fight a mirror match instead? Either way, I'm kind of scared for the Dragons. The Fuel have been a well-oiled machine ever since the May Melee. Their team play is so ridiculous. I mean, even in a losing effort, they still look absolutely insane. Anybody on that team can be a playmaker at any given time. Not to mention that their rotations and their timing, it's all super crisp. And the real cherry on top has been their ability to defeat comps that are meant to counter them. Like, What can you really do if this type of team can make dive work despite having an Orisa, Brig, McCree, and Torb on your side? The Dragons would have to find a way to play even cleaner. To be fair, if anybody can pull this off, it's definitely the Dragons, but I can't get myself to go against the Fuel. The Fuel win this thing 3-1. Dallas just feel unstoppable to me. Everybody's been performing at such a high level. The tanks remain consistent. Sparkle's been on a tear on whatever the heck he plays, and then of course there's Fielder. His dominance has been on another level this stage. He is the best flex support in the league right now. The sheer amount of healing he's outputting on the Moira should be illegal. Shanghai do not have an answer for all of that. They'll put up a good fight, but it's nothing that Dallas can't handle. Alrighty, on to the winners finals, I guess theoretical winners finals. The Atlanta Reign will try to continue the magic run against the Dallas Fuel. If Atlanta can beat the Shock, then I guess in theory they could win this too, but their odds aren't too good, and I say that for a few reasons. One, Dallas are going to be a tough opponent. Beating the Shock as badly as the Reign did deserves some praise, but the Shock were not at full strength. You could tell they were struggling and they were making a lot of mistakes, and you likely won't see that with the Fuel. They're not going to be that sloppy. So right off the bat, you lose that in the driver's seat position that you had with the Shock. In fact, you're most likely on the opposite side of the spectrum now. The Fuel are the ones who are likely to be in command, if anything. They have the playmakers to match the Reign, and they know exactly how to counter these heavy Orisa compositions. In my opinion, this is a nightmare matchup for Atlanta. This is the team that requires the most mid-game adaptations to take down, and the Reign aren't exactly known for that. They've been a bit better with it this year, but they still have gotten exposed on a few different occasions. Right away on control, the Fuel should be able to assert their will. In the Rush Mirror, I favor Dallas 9 times out of 10. Unlike the Shock, they've been very consistent with it, and I highly doubt that Gator and Hawk could have that same kind of presence as Fearless and Hanbin in that kind of situation. If it was on the Orisa mirror, then maybe it's a different story, but not here. The Dallas Fuel are not going to be playing that. And again, Fearless is kind of playing out of his mind currently. If he's not consistently the top support in this tournament, I'd be shocked. Okay, but what about after that? Well, the same thing happens on Assault in my opinion, so it's really up to the Escort and Hybrid maps. If the Reign want to have any sort of chance, they have to use the long sight lines and bunker-favored comps to their full advantage on these map types. That will, of course, require a lot of good counterplay. Maybe Kai's the answer, or perhaps a very specific composition. Does any of it even matter, though? I would lean towards no. Unless the Reign plays some top-notch Overwatch, the Fuel should have this. Just because this tournament has been extremely random, I'll give the Reign a map for the heck of it. They could probably pull off a full hold on like a payload map or something, because if the Gladiators could do it, so could they. But I really think this is just a bad matchup overall for the Reign. Dallas are too unpredictable, and they're simply playing at another level. So they're on to the finals for the second tournament in a row. Alright, on to first round of losers. The NYXL versus the Shanghai Dragons. Yeah, I'm kind of scared for New York if they lose to Atlanta in round 1. Unless they have undergone some sort of magical transformation, they should be at the mercy of a team that has already claimed superiority over them. Now, to be fair, the meta has changed quite a bit since their first meeting, but you guys saw how Shanghai were playing last week. They were unstoppable. New York might be improved, but what happens when you have to plan for multiple opponents instead of just one? As a young and inexperienced team, that might not bode so well. They can't even get a potential advantage thanks to a different meta philosophy either in this situation. What can the NYXL really do? I'm not sure myself. If these two teams play the same composition, I think you have to favor the Dragons unless it's on some random one-off comp that they don't usually touch. It's going to take a lot to force the Dragons to switch. They'll have to dig deep into their bag of tricks for something like that. You need a total team effort to take down the Dragons, and if I'm being honest, I don't see the NYXL pulling it off. The Dragons get the sweep. Maybe the tank line could hold their own, and Flora has a good day, but that won't be enough. Fleta against Feather, that could be pretty brutal, and the Shanghai supports aren't only stronger playmakers than the NYXLs in my opinion, but they're more disciplined too. Sounds like a classic mismatch if you ask me. The good news though, if you're the NYXL, is they have no pressure on them whatsoever to perform, so you never know what could happen. Anyway, next up is the losers finals. If my predictions were to somehow, some way hold up to be true, I doubt they will, but if they were to, the Atlanta Reign will play the Shanghai Dragons. This one is interesting. Because Shanghai play more of the traditional stuff that the Reign are accustomed to, the upset might be possible here. If the Reign can stay comfortable out there the way they did with the Shock, maybe the magical run doesn't have to end here. It's going to require some things to go their way though. The Reign's win conditions revolve around getting their DPS high, hot, and their support's keeping pace. Iris has been playing well as of late, so I have high hopes for him to possibly do this. In my opinion, Masa is going to be the big factor. With the way Lee Jae-gon played against Seoul, Masa must find a way to channel his playmaking Lucio that he was known for in Season 2. But the problem is that he can't get away with the same stuff that Lee Jae-gon does, and that is a limitation that could come back to bite him and the Rain early on during Map 1. When it comes down to it, Atlanta fall a little flat with playmakers outside of DPS. If the Dragons don't play the way the Shock did, where they managed to have their main support die every other fight, then they should be fine. DPS, I really do think it could be interesting, but it might not matter since people like Void, Fate, and Lee Jae-gon are proven to be more reliable in these types of situations. The Rain are underdogs with an inconsistent track record, so I have them losing this game. But some of you may be surprised to see that I'm predicting a close match. Now, why would I say this goes 5 maps if I clearly think the Dragons are superior? Well, I really don't have a legit way to explain myself. I just figure that one of these games has to be a lot closer than we anticipate it to be. There is no way every match in this thing ends up being super predictable. The June Joust has been way too random for that, and the Rain have recently made a habit of proving me wrong, so why not? They go out in a blaze of glory and give it everything they have. And that leaves us with what seems like the most likely outcome, Dallas versus Shanghai in the finals yet again. It's hard to see either of them getting eliminated by the Rain or the NYXL. It's a matter of who has the longer path to get here, really. We've already discussed this matchup, so all we can really do is pick a winner and maybe speculate how much closer or how much more of a blowout this is going to be compared to their previous meeting in round 1. In my opinion, this time it's definitely going to be closer. Maybe it's because Dallas start to run out of gas a little bit, or perhaps the Dragons simply make adaptations and their sheer desire to win makes it a good contest. The sheer desire for revenge is going to be a very powerful tool for the Shanghai Dragons at this point. When you lose to the same team 3 times in a row in a tournament setting, the anger starts to build up, and an angry Shanghai is a dangerous Shanghai. Not to mention that there is reason to have faith in them to make the proper adjustments. Whether that be a counter composition they formulate, or even adopting a rush comp of their own, they have what it takes to push Dallas or even beat them. But at the same time, it's very important to remember that the opposite effect could play out too. Sometimes you run into that opponent that you just can't take down. It doesn't matter how good you've been playing or how much you prepare, they just have you figured out no matter what. And let me tell you, when it feels like that, the motivation and the energy, it just leaves your very soul. And when that happens, the game ends up not being close. You just want to get it over with and let the other team crush you. Because Shanghai is so talented, I'm of the belief that they play well. But a negative outcome is very much a possibility given the situation, so I would not be surprised if the Fuel win quite easily somehow. But with gameplay to study and a coaching staff who is great with strategy, I say the Dragons don't let that happen. They're still going to lose in my opinion, but they will push the Fuel to 7 maps to give us the match we hoped would go the distance during the May Melee. The Dallas Fuel, they're the main protagonist of the Overwatch League currently. They will not be stopped. I'm a firm believer that unless the meta drastically changes, I mean so much to the point where all of their stuff that they like to play is terrible, they will continue to win or at least be in a position to win. If they've come this far against all the odds and the supposed disadvantages, then they should be able to defeat the Dragons yet again. It won't be easy. Shanghai are on equal footing with them in the clutch department. Shanghai are well equipped to pull this off, now it's just a matter of the execution and delivery. This should be a great game. Just like last time, it's the battle of different philosophies. This time, is the Winston Rush of Dallas going to win out, or will Shanghai's bunker and or rush be superior? The answer is not entirely clear, but it will surely be a lot of fun to find out. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is my tournament bracket for the June Joust. You now know exactly who not to pick and what map scores to avoid at all costs to have a successful bracket. You're welcome. But in all seriousness, if you're pumped up for the June Joust, leave a comment down below with predictions of your own. I'd love to hear how different or similar yours is to mine. If you enjoyed the video and you want more prediction content here on the channel, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.